This is my review of the HT Polar tip-up. I've used this tip-up for probably 10 to maybe even 15 years now. It's caught me a lot of fish, and I have some thoughts that I'd like to share with you if you're considering getting this tip-up or another tip-up similar to it. I've used this tip-up for catching everything from perch and pike, walleye, bass, and any number of species that really about anything that will eat a minnow. This is what it works really well for. Here in Michigan we're allowed to use 3 lines. Typically I'll put out 2 tip-ups and then jig with my 3rd line. We cover a lot of water and locate a school of fish and with the tip-ups, and then normally I move in with the jigging rod, and I can normally catch a 2nd or 3rd and maybe even a 4th fish after I've found them with the tip-up. Okay, overall I give this tip-up a rating of 4 out of 5 on various categories. They are a little bit time consuming to set up, but they're better than the old style that I used to use, that I originally started with, which would be the folding sticks. They didn't work very well at all. But these are really nice because when you have them set in the water and you get a flag, you can see if it's an active hit, because right there, as the reel turns down here, you can see that movement up here, and you can see if it's a fast running fish or if it's just something that's barely creeping, and you can see when the fish has stopped to swallow the bait, and that's really nice to know before you ever pick up the tip up, to see if that is an active fish or not. One of the other things I like about this design is that it's got 2 different sensitivity settings. If I'm fishing for pike, which normally I'll use a larger minnow, either a spot tail shiner or a sucker chub, I'll put it on that deep groove there, and that keeps it from that keeps that minnow from tripping the flag. And if I'm fishing for perch or sometimes even walleye, which often they bite really light and they don't move very far after they've hit the minnow, it's really nice to set it to the that, I don't know if you can see it there, but that shallower groove that allows you to detect the small nibbles and bites, especially when you're fishing for perch or fishing around perch, because they'll just barely nip and they'll pick at your minnow until they get it off the hook, and a lot of times they won't ever set the flag, which is kind of a downside to using a tip-up too, is that you can have perch or bluegills or something move in and just sit there and peck at your minnow until it steals it, and you'll never even know that you're fishing without a minnow in your hole for a while, so you have to go through and check them every so often. Another thing I really like is these reels, they spin very freely and they're nice and smooth. There's not much resistance there for when the fish is taking line out when they're running, and I don't really seem to get too many dropped minnows, or when the fish will hit it, they don't feel that that drag, and they're a lot more likely to keep the minnow in their mouth while they're running away with it. I've had several models of tip-ups in the past that's been an issue, where this is stiff, so you'll get a hit, they'll trip your flag, but they feel that tension and that resistance in there, and they'll just drop it. They won't continue to take the minnow. So by the time you come to them, they're already gone. One thing I don't really like about the design of this, there's no good way to keep these together out of the box. I have a modification that I do that I like, but right from the get-go, you can put the flag underneath there, and that keeps that in place. But this gets this is free to move, so unless you really crank that down, but then you have to readjust it every time you go out. It really likes to unfold in your tackle box and make a mess. And also the hook. There's no good way to keep your hook rigged up, and there's no line keeper on here. So you do wind up getting a lot of tags and snags and tangles in your tackle box. I have come up with a way to modify these so they work a lot better, and I'll probably show you that at the end or maybe in a different video. It really involves the power drill here, which is why I have it out, and drilling an additional 3 holes. As you can see, they have one hole, I don't know if you can see that or not, but right there, yeah, you can see. They have one hole there, and that is the right size to fit the flag in. But a lot of times, by the time you get your line tensioned up, it's hard to get the flag through there. So what I do is I drill an additional 3 holes in each one of these quadrants. It's kind of hard to see. There you go. Each one of these additional quadrants, and that allows me to get the flag anywhere into the spool, no matter how much line is on that particular spot. Another thing that is kind of hard about using, and this is all tip-ups in general, is when you get a fish on, you have to fight it hand over hand, and you have to hand line it in. I really do like catching fish on a rod and reel. It makes the fish fighting process so much better. The fish you can play out the fish a lot more, and also you don't get a big mess where you're pulling the line up onto the ice and it freezes into the ice, and it's just a lot more time consuming to use a tip-up than it is a jigging rod. I've started moving towards using tip downs, where your rod tip, set up a jigging rod and your rod tip will tip down, and that does seem to work better than tip-ups, but the standard tip-up is still good. And also, without a reel, you have to sit here and you have to spool the line back on. And when you're out fishing in the cold winter time, your hands get cold and you wind up having to take your gloves off to deal with it. And it really becomes a pain. Literally, it can become a pain if it's like it is out today and it's negative 15 degrees. It's really not very much fun. I would say the value of these, they are a good value. They're only, as you can see, I think here, I picked this one up for $10.99 at my local bait shop. But they seem to be going up. That's actually a pretty good price for these now. They used to be $8, $9 when I first started using them, and now they're $10 to $15 depending on where you can find them. So the $15 range, they're getting more expensive, and they definitely lose some of their value equation compared to getting a jigging rod. Okay, I hope that review was helpful, and I'll show you some how I modify these and how I set up with how I set the line up on a later video. All right, thank you.